make the fucking difference between winning and losing.
If you want to crown them, then crown their ass. But they are who we thought they were.
Welcome, everybody, to the first edition, the fantasy preview of the LongBalls. I am your host, the one, the only JBONE Madden. Who dat, baby? We're here. And with me is going to be my co-host each and every week, the ratings wizard, the Hochster. What's up, dude?
What up, man? Here to spread my intellect around the NFL world. Let people know. Spit some knowledge.
Spit some knowledge. Hell yeah. This is going to be an exciting year. So just kind of let everybody know how we're going to be doing this. This is just a fantasy preview. Next week we'll preview the actual league. And each and every Tuesday, once the leagues get started, we're going to be previewing each week, starting with week 1. And yeah, we got some exciting times. Football is ahead. Of course, we'll probably pop in the off season every once in a while. Free agency goes down, draft specials, things like that. But week to week, this will be occurring, of course, here, every week during the season. So I think the first thing we got to do is get to the kickoff, baby. So here it is. Kickoff, baby. So, Hochster, tell everybody why not only you, why you're qualified to be a fantasy expert.
Well, first off, I've been watching NFL as long as I can remember, before I even knew what it was. Pops has Monday Night Football on TV in the 80s. And once I became a fan of Colts, obviously I'm in Indiana, around probably like 93 or 94. The first year I remember being a huge fan was the year that the Colts by fluke made it to the AFC Championship game, and we ended up losing to the Steelers on a last-second play.
Is that Jeff George? Was that Jeff George your quarterback then?
No, it was Jim Harbaugh, Captain
That's
Comeback.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And then after that, we did a few shitty years, but which actually paid off in the long run because we drafted Peyton Manning number 1 in 98, and everyone knows how that goes.
Could have had Ryan Leaf.
Could have had Ryan Leaf. But what's shitty is and you have a similar experience for the longest time, when you have Manning and then you go to Luck, like for the NFL is different for you than the rest of the NFL. Like you have these teams that are struggling, but when you have a player like Manning or Luck, like you're going to be good. It's just a matter of how far you make it. So my whole adult life, pretty much being a fan, I had Peyton Manning. So I thought like NFL was just great because we were always winning. But then since Luck retired, it's a completely different NFL, man, when you don't have that quarterback position locked up. So you're trying to figure that up. I mean, I'm still a huge fan. I still go to all the games, but I've been going to at least 2 Colts games a year for about the last 15 years. Because it's starting in 2005. I went to an away Colts game every year. And went up to Foxborough in 2005 to watch Colts Patriots. This is the first time we ever beat them in Foxborough. And every year since then, I went to at least one away game. Me and my dad do it. And then my mom has season tickets, so I always hit at least one home game. But 2 to 3 games a year I go to for the last 15 years. I haven't missed a Colts game with the exception of 1 or 2 in the last 20 years. So huge fan. And being in fantasy, it makes you follow the NFL maybe a bit closer than you would like to or have time for. So I've been doing fantasy for 15, 20 years. So just have a really good, I got a finger on the pulse of the NFL. And I'm a genius, as you know. You've heard me talk on Turnbuckle Tavern. So,
oh, my God.
I retain all this knowledge
already.
I retain all this knowledge of the NFL, and then I put it towards like a money-making endeavor with fantasy football because,
Well, why don't you try to retain some knowledge on some entrance themes, but,
but
might help you out, too.
Yeah, I'm basically your go-to for all things NFL. You can trust me. You can trust my opinions, my predictions on betting, on who's going to win. Just in general, just trust me.
Now, does Indiana have sports betting?
Yeah, we have a casino. Because we're so prudes, like we don't have any sort of like medical marijuana laws, like it's still completely illegal in Indiana. But we allow betting, like horse casinos and shit. So we have the sports book there. I don't think you can just go to a bookie in Indiana, but with online
Right.
betting,
Yeah, I
it's
mean that's
legal.
what I mean. Is online betting is legal? Because it's not in every state yet.
But I think online you could bet no matter what, right? Because it's
No,
online.
au contraire, my friend. You got to be in certain states. They because Louisiana just got it about pretty much about the beginning of last football seasons. Whenever Louisiana got it, where you could bet online. So yeah, it's kind of funky laws, but it depends where you're at. But
So there's some states you can't get on FanDuel
right,
and bet.
it's very few now. I mean, most of the states have it, but I was just kind of curious, where everything was at on that in Indiana. But I mean, if you're able to do it, then you're good.
Well, disclaimer: I don't really bet on sports because I don't care how well you know the NFL or sports.
Oh yeah,
Betting's just a different goddamn beast. And just
oh yeah,
quick story on my very first time I ever gambled on the NFL is I had never bet on sports ever in my life, and then I get to college around 2007, and my friend he bets on sports. He keeps trying to talk me into it. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. Come the NFL, I'm like, all right, I'll lay down a bet, $100, and Chargers at Minnesota. You got me there? Oh
yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, Chargers at Minnesota, and this is Adrian Peterson's rookie year. So the Vikings had the number 1 pick in the draft. Chargers are coming off like a 14-2 year. Was killing it. And the Chargers were only favored by 3 at Minnesota. I'm like, holy fuck, they're going to win this game by way more than 3 points. Adrian Peterson comes in and breaks the single game rushing record.
Yeah, I remember that game.
Not for a rookie, but like
of all time. Yeah,
of all time. And then I lose the bet. And then
it was was it 252 yards or something?
It was
like
something
that?
insane. And I'm like,
Yeah,
that's
like Madden numbers.
So that was my introduction to sports betting. So I mean, I've placed bets since then, very sporadically, but that game just really opened up my eyes to what sports betting is. And then, because if you're with someone who bets a lot and you know the spreads, because I do start following the spreads more often, and then you're watching a game and you know the spread's like 3 and the score's so close to where it could go either way. Man, there's some things that happen where you're like, the refs know the spread and they're fucking making calls deliberately to either go over or under it. I'm convinced.
Well, and look, this is coming a whole nother animal, but you look at drawing like is it Julio Jones? The one, no, Calvin Riddle, the one that he's out. Ridley, excuse me, Golly, Ridley. That helmet on was too tight, like blood spilling. Like
you got that for your 13th birthday, still trying to rock
it. It was sitting on my desk here, but I was like, oh, I'm gonna grab it. But anyway, but yeah, I mean, look, he's out for the whole year because he gambled on games, which we'll talk about that. It's a little ridiculous. I mean, I get what they're doing. They don't want players betting on themselves, and having a Pete Rose scenario.
It wasn't a game he was playing in, though. Right, he was betting on games that. So I don't get why they're not allowed to.
But Deshaun Watson you can have him. Women can be playing with his taint, and he only gets 11 games. All right, cool.
But I'll say with the Deshaun Watson, like, I'm not condoning his behavior at all, but we're only talking like he didn't play at all last season. So whatever suspension he gets this year, I feel like he's already served a 1-year suspension. So
yeah,
like I feel he's been punished. He can play football now.
Yeah. Just don't be like Ben Roethlisberger coming out saying, "Oh, I think he should be kicked out of the league." Oh, really? Ben there, right? That right, Ben?
Yeah. Well, I mean, these guys. I don't tune in for these guys' moral character.
Right. Exactly.
So I'm not condoning anyone's behavior outside of football, but what they do in their personal lives, I really don't give a fuck.
Right.
Like again, not condoning his behavior, but I want Deshaun Watson fucking in the league because it makes the league better, man.
Right.
And it's one more player you get to pick up in fantasy.
Yeah. Well, myself,
Fuck those women. I want Deshaun Watson on my fantasy team.
Of course, myself, I am a Saints fan. I think probably my first memory is like 92. Bobby Aber. So this would be like technically, I guess, my 30-year fandom into football. But remember Bobby, the Cajun Cannon Aber. Vividly remember I was 5 years old, sitting in the barbershop, waiting for my dad to get his haircut and seeing this big, huge poster of Bobby Aber. To ask my dad, like, who's that? And he, of course, he said, oh, that's the Saints quarterback, blah, 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 blah. So I started watching football because my dad, of course, was a big football fan. And it's kind of funny. Like, my dad, he was a big wrestling fan and a big football fan. He doesn't watch wrestling anymore, but still watches football. But, I kind of got that from my dad. But ever since then, I became a fan. Then he left for Atlanta, and I was like, fuck the Falcons ever since. So went through the 90s of Saints horribleness. It was some bad years, but I do look at it very fondly because I remember as a kid, this is kind of where my wrestling and football kind of come together. I turn on Saints football on Sunday. I get my little wrestling ring out and play wrestling while watching football. So that's kind of where everything kind of consumed me. And I've been playing fantasy now since 2006, 2005, every year. Not going to lie, I am the reigning champion in my league. And this year I'm joining the y'all's league as well too this year. So we'll be talking more about that as we kind of go along. So that's us. That's us in a nutshell. Of course, you can see us on everything else on Turnbuckle Tavern.
But I do want to mention, JBONE, you got to mention of how NFL was great for you during Drew Brees' tenure.
Absolutely.
And now you're back to like where I'm at now, where you're like,
a little bit, yeah.
You have a decade or more of just not just solid quarterback play, but generational quarterback play, only to see him leave. And now you're like, God damn it. Now what's next? Fuck.
Right. But here's the thing. And I think this is why it's important to draft well, obviously. Not fantasy draft, but just for your team to draft well. Colts picked up Peyton Manning, and they always are like kind of in the mix, somehow, some way. So ever since then, even after the Andrew Luck days, they've always kind of appeared in the playoffs, bouncing around, haven't done well. Same thing kind of with the Saints. Like, they're kind of like teetering, right? A lot of times. Now, last year they didn't make the playoffs, but it's it'll be interesting to see what happens. They came close though, even after Winston, so they still have a good team. Each and every week we'll be doing kind of a homer rant where we talk, kind of give a 2-minute spiel about how our team's performance did. So you'll be able to catch that. But yeah, we picked up Drew Brees, got him from the Chargers, and of course we had that explosion, got a Super Bowl victory over your Indianapolis Colts.
But you know what? Like, I actually really liked. Obviously, I wanted the Colts to win the game, but if they had to lose, I'm glad it was to Drew Brees, and I'm glad because that ended up being his only Super Bowl. So if we would have won that Super Bowl, Drew Brees would have came and went without getting one. So
it was a great game. It really was.
As much as I would have loved to have it, I am glad that Drew Brees did get a Super Bowl because I do like Drew Brees.
I will admit though, if Freeney was healthy, it would have changed the impact of that game. So, White Freeney.
Well, I remember that game specifically. Trust me. So I remember us being up 10-3. We're driving down the field. Pierre Garcon Peyton Manning drops a perfect fucking bomb right over the middle of Pierre Garcon. If he catches it, he's to the end zone. We're up 17-3 going into halftime. Drops it. We punt.
I remember that.
You guys come out. It's like 10-3 at halftime or something. You guys come out, onside kick, tie it up, and then the game, it just totally turned with that drive. Remember that. And that's the thing about fandom. When you watch your team week in and week out, like, the difference between your 12-4 team and your fucking 3 and fucking 13 team, like a bounce here, a bounce there, and it's a completely different season.
Yeah.
And that's how it is being a Colts fan. Like, because, with both of us, you figure both teams would have had more Super Bowls than one. But as a fan, you get it. You understand why you don't, because there's drops there. And then people forget that the Patriots have kind of, I don't want to say ruined the NFL, but people think that that's what it is. Like, there's always one team that kind of like the Patriots were a fluke. And now that dynasty's kind of broken up, now it's wide open. There's no teams like that. And they're all professionals.
It's true.
So even like Mahomes, like I could see Mahomes, he could win 3 more titles. He might not win another one. You just don't know in the NFL, man. It's so tough.
Yeah, it's true. And like you talk about the Patriots dynasty, that all basically started off on the tuck rule, pretty much. If you have if the referees do what they're supposed to do and call it a fumble, the Patriots might not have that dynasty.
It's true.
It's
like
crazy.
I'm not saying Brady isn't great. He's a great quarterback, but a lot of stuff goes into building greatness, and the confidence of winning a Super Bowl that young goes into it.
How to win.
But ultimately, everyone knows that he fucking fumbled that ball in the AFC Championship. That was a goddamn fumble.
He even just admitted it like a couple months ago.
But I understand, like, it was right after 9/11. Everyone was so patriotic as fuck. And they're like, what can we do? Let's have the Patriots win the Super Bowl. I swear to God, that was it, man. Because that was such a fumble that I don't even know how you could call it anything else but that. But anyway.
Yeah, whatever. Well, I'm sure we'll get into all that later on in the season.
But that's the beauty part about today's NFL, and that's why we can have the shows, because, like, right now, like, you can say who the favorite is to win the Super Bowl, but we don't know. There's it's so fucking wide open, especially with, like, Cincy's run last year coming out of nowhere. Like, that can happen, and that's the thing I like about the NFL more than the NBA. Like, the NBA, it's 2 or 3 teams every year. That's it. Where the NFL, man, you legitimately think that, I don't care how your team was the season before, you legitimately think before the season starts that you have a chance. You're like, I think we drafted well. We picked up the right free agents. I think we might cause a stir.
I think the Saints have a good shot, to be honest with you. I think the Colts have a good shot. I think, of course, you look at the top teams. Bills, of course, is like right there. But we'll save all that for the NFL preview too. Yeah. For next week. So next Tuesday we'll have the NFL preview. We'll talk about that and kind of discuss who we think are going to win the Super Bowl. Again, it's wide open. It's anybody's league. So we could either be right, we could be wrong. We don't know. But we're here to talk about fantasy. So I think we have to ask one question. Hawk, what's your fantasy?
No, because he sucks you guys in.
I want to kiss you.
So he sucks you guys right in. So consider yourself sucked.
Chad is okay. You might be the ratings wizard, but Chad is the video bumper wizard. Okay,
yeah, it's hilarious. So what I think's hilarious at this time of year. So this is the one time of year that you don't want to like die and then your family get your laptop, or this is the time the FBI confiscates your laptop, because it's just going to be a man's name followed by fantasy. Your whole browser. Taylor fantasy. Patrick Mahomes fantasy.
Oh boy. So let's talk about some principles. We're gonna, especially when drafting, really, is what we're talking about. Well, actually, we could talk about, there's many different ways you can set up your league too. I mean, you have auction drafts, you've got snake drafts, you've got, as far as setting the rules, you got PPR, non PPR. To be honest with you, if you're not doing PPR in your league, you're missing out.
It is. Well, so my first principle, I'll just get it right off the bat since we're talking about it, is do an auction draft. Yeah. And I've dealt with this a few times where people who have never done an auction draft, and you mention it to them and they're like, no, I don't want to do that. That sounds dumb. And I was kind of like that about, I think it was like 4 or 5 years ago. And then when you finally do an auction draft, your mind's blown. Because it's so much fucking better. Because in a snake draft, A, you're at the mercy of your draft position.
Right.
And B, there's like 10 to 15 minutes at a time that you're not even active. You're just watching everybody else draft. Whereas in auction draft, the whole time the draft's going on, you're in it. You have to pay attention every second of the draft. So it makes the draft more interesting. And you don't have to worry about like, oh, okay, I'm going for this player. He just has to make it 3 more picks. And then someone steals it right before you pick. Like that's never an issue. If you want the player, you can get them. You just have to fucking pay for it. So that's my number one principle right off the bat, auction draft.
Yeah, and whenever that's good. I'm going to be participating in my first auction draft with you guys. I've never done one. Not that I've never been against it. It's just it's never just been brought up in any of my leagues before. So I'll have to definitely do the mock drafts to get ready to try to see how this is all about. But it's good. It's good to have an open mind. But I guess we could say that my first principle, though, like I mentioned, is gotta have PPR. Have a PPR in your league. I mean, it's so much better. Even my dog right now, he's barking. He's loving it.
He's like, yeah, PPR.
PPR, get the fuck out. If you don't know what that means, it's points per reception. It really increases that gameplay, especially for your running backs and your tight ends as well. So, do a PPR league. Whether you do a half point or a point, it's still fun to have that included. What is another principle of yours that you want to speak about?
Well, and this is the overall drafting, regardless of what sort of draft you're in, auction or snake. And that is, for me, is only take players on offenses that are supposed to be good. More specifically, I guess, that have a good quarterback, at least serviceable. So if you're looking at like, oh man, the wide receiver 1 for the Jets is still available, but then you got like wide receiver 2 for the Chiefs. It's like, take wide receiver 2 for the Chiefs before you take wide receiver 1 for the fucking Jets. Because, and like last year, for example, and I was the high point man in my league last year, first place regular season, breeze through the playoffs, championship game, lose, of course, because it's such a fucking. But
couldn't get the job done, bud.
But on that principle is why I did it. But so in last year's draft, there was one example of me going against my draft strategy, and it was Allen Robinson on the Bears. He had a good season the year before. I knew the Bears offense was going to be fucking shitty as fuck last year, but I'm like, God, it's Allen Robinson. They were shitty as fuck the year before, and Allen Robinson had a good year. So I went for it, and the dude shit the bed like fucking crazy last year. And that's why. So this year I'm sticking to my strategy no matter what. I don't care what the player is. Only draft players on good offenses, because it doesn't pay to have number 1 guys on shitty offenses.
Yeah, I mean, 100% agree. You definitely want to look at the team as a whole. That kind of brings me though to my second point. That my second principle though is you want to avoid good players on the same team. So, like quarterbacks and running backs, that kind of thing. Like, for instance, Joe Burrow and Joe Mixon. I mean, Joe Mixon's a good running back to get. I kind of like to avoid them because depending on what the team plays, and if they're playing more highly, a great pass defense, they have great secondary. Your Burrow's not going to maybe not get the ball to the receivers that much, and they're going to focus more on running backs. Kind of same thing. Even I don't even like doing quarterbacks to receivers as much because you're kind of handcuffing yourself at one of those positions, or one of the receiver positions. Because if Burrow doesn't get it to Chase, let's say if you got Burrow and Chase on the same team, and he doesn't get it to Chase and he goes towards Higgins, then you're handcuffing yourself on that player. So for me, I like to try to avoid, same players on teams, depending on the situation.
I hear you on the quarterback, running back, but I'm a huge fan of quarterback to receiver combinations if it's solid. For instance,
right?
I'm a huge Russell Wilson guy in fantasy. and it's paid dividends pretty much every season. For some reason, people don't like him in fantasy, but I
don't know why.
Cheap.
He's good,
and he always fucking kills it. But then I'll get like Taylor Lockett, who I don't know if you've ever had him in fantasy. So Taylor Lockett's a guy. He'll come out 200 yards, 3 touchdowns. The next game, he'll come out 10 yards, 0 touchdowns. He's one of those guys.
Right.
But if you have the combination on the games where him and Russell connect for 3 TDs and 200 yards, I mean, you've won your game on that. But if the receiver shits the bed or the quarterback, then you've probably lost your game because your main point revenue, I guess, has been shut down. So I see both ways. Like I said, that has won me games and lost me games, but in general, I agree with you on not having the same QB RB, but QB to wide receiver, I do like that sometimes.
Yeah, it depends on the situation. I have done it. But mainly QB or running back. I probably, if I had like a chance to get Burrow and Chase, I'd probably take it because those two together. I mean, we saw what they did in LSU. We saw what they did in Cincinnati.
His rookie year, Jesus.
Yeah, they're killing it, right? So, but that was just maybe a bad example I used. But it all depends on the quarterback too. If the quarterback is like a stud, is gonna get the ball to his receivers all the time, and can overcome that secondary, no matter how good they are, then that might play a role into it. But what's your third principle?
I mean, that really just got those main two. Those are the two that I live by the most. The main principle you just got to live by is it's an fantasy's an offensive fucking thing. Defenses are because defense and kicker. It's not uncommon for people to go have 10 different defenses or 10 different kickers throughout the course of a season. Defenses you'll normally pick like if you have a team that's getting ready to play like the fucking Jets and their defense is on the waiver wire, fucking pick up that defense, pick up defenses that are playing shitty fucking offenses. So yeah, it's basically just draft players on good offenses.
And I have one other thing I want to discuss too, especially when drafting. Don't worry so much on the bye weeks. A lot of people get caught up on that, like, oh man, I've got 4 players and they're going to be out week 8. I mean, look, a lot of times in fantasy you can afford to drop, depending on the players, you could afford to drop a game if it means that you got 4 studs, at bye week. And a lot of times you could pick up people on waiver wires to kind of get around that. That was one mistake I made early on. Like, oh no, like I paid too much close attention to the bye weeks, and I was skipping over good players because of that. So that's what I would say is, yeah, you want to definitely try to win every game, but it gets down when you get down to the playoffs, you're gonna have all those good players, and that's when it pays off towards the end. Because in the regular season, it doesn't really necessarily matter as much. But if you can get in the playoffs and have a stacked team that's healthy, that's what you would want. So,
and that reminded me of something I should bring up. This would be a good principle is because in like waiver wires for the most part, like have but like an auction league has budgets. It's not like there's the order, but then there's the like you bid on the players too. Like I want to bid. You have $100 budget in an auction draft for the whole season. So if you give like $10, then you have $90 for the rest of the season. And you see it a lot in fucking auction leagues is people blowing their waiver wire wad on a player who had like 2 touchdowns, 100 yards week 1. You hadn't heard of him, but he came in and he fucking killed it week 1. And there's this urge to, I'm just going to go drop fucking $50 on this fucking player. He's obviously going to be good. And then he does nothing the rest of the season. So really watch spending too much money on the waiver wire early on, just because someone had a great game week 1 or week 2 or something. Cause a lot of that shit's fluky. It happens all the time. So be cognizant of like, you can tell if the person's legit or not, Because you do have players like Jamar Chase who just come out of nowhere. Like you wouldn't think like he has a good week 1 and then he just never goes away. But then there's some players who they'll come in and then you never hear from them again.
Yeah. Well, ultimately, of course, when you're doing fantasy, you do one thing.
You play to win the game.
Got to play to win the game, baby.
Got to play to win the game.
Yeah. Oh, Harm Edwards, man. Let's go ahead and get into. We're gonna get into going through our top positions here, top players in quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers, tight ends. And maybe we'll discuss a couple defenses and whatnot to look after. Give our predictions, some people to look after, of course. Let's start us off. Who is your number 3 quarterback to look for this year?
I'm gonna go with Burrow, man. I think he's a proven winner, and they're only going to get better with the offensive line. And since he got better, Jamar Chase is only going to get better. You could argue that since he has the best wide receiving core in the NFL, I think Mixon's I'd say above average running back. They're going to have a fucking baller offense, and so Joey B, man, number 3.
Yeah. We'll talk about Burrow again. I mean, he's in my 3. Actually, we have the same 3, just in different order. Burrow, man, he killed it for me last year. I picked him up. I had Burrow and Russell Wilson on my team last year, and it was hard to to decide who do I go with each
until
and every
Russell
week.
went down for 5 games, and then
right.
I get Russell Wilson every year.
Yeah. So it was close, the early part of the year, and Burrow wasn't doing so great in the beginning here, but that last probably 6 games, 5-6 games of the regular season, he was on fire, and it's like he couldn't miss. Who's your number 2?
My number 2, I'm going to go with Justin Herbert with Chargers. He has the weapons. He has Eckler, and he has goddamn Keenan Allen. Is Mike Williams still on the Chargers? Do they keep him?
I think so. Okay. I have to look that up.
Killer offensive weapons.
Right.
He has a killer arm. Watch him. And again, these players, I mostly just follow fantasy stats and then highlights, so I'm not watching a bunch of Chargers games. But everything I've seen from him, fucking statistic-wise, and he passes the smell test. It's all... He's a baller, man.
Yeah.
I think he's only going to get better. Like I said, these are all young QBs, man. We haven't even seen the best of them.
Justin Herbert looks like the love child of Hoch and young Anthony.
Fuck. You're going to get young Anthony hot with stuff like that.
Your number 1 quarterback.
My number 1 is Josh Allen because I had him last year in fantasy. Man, this dude will win you games, your fantasy game, on him alone. He'll put up 40 points alone between passing and running. And I think Stephon Diggs is top 3 wide receiver in the league also. So yeah, one of the top quarterbacks with one of the top receivers combination, the athleticism to run when he needs to run. He's just got the whole package, and it's proven effective. He absolutely killed it for me last year.
Yeah. When this dude got drafted by the Bills, I already knew. I was like, this guy right here, bona fide stud. Had the size, the arm strength, everything that you need. Just needed those few weapons, and he's got it now with Diggs, Stephon Diggs. So even though Diggs is not a fan for us New Orleans fans, but the Minneapolis Miracle. Oh, yikes. Real quick, my top 3. I got, like I said, same as Hawk, just in different order. I got Joey B. For like I mentioned last year, he won me my league last year. I was middle of the road. I was I think I was a 4 seed, and I annihilated everybody. The final score in the finals was 189 to 103 or something crazy like that. Just completely destroyed my opponent. And then I've got Josh Allen. Like I said, he's a stud. Might get Bills their first Super Bowl trophy potentially this year. Like I said, we'll talk about that next week. And then young Hawkster, the young Anthony Hawkster over here, Justin Herbert.
I would say people are probably at home like, no Patrick Mahomes. And here's my reasoning for him not being a top 3 fantasy quarterback is, look, Tyreek Hill's one of the best receivers in the NFL. You don't lose Tyreek Hill. And again, Mahomes is great. He might be the best quarterback in the NFL, but we're talking about fantasy here. And your weapons have a lot to do with it. Kansas City has a lot of unproven receivers right now. Kelsey, a year older, man. The dude's like 33 years old now. And in the NFL, what happens is you're a stud and then you're not a stud. There's very rarely this period of like you getting worse. It's like one season you're great and then the next season you come back and you're just not good. I'm not saying that's Kelsey this year. I'm just saying it's a possibility. A lot more is going to be asked of him than previous years because Tyreek Hill's taking the fucking top off defenses, man. You know, he's just, hey, Tyreek, run as fast as you can to the end zone. Seriously, right?
Yeah.
So, and again, I'm not taking anything away from Mahomes. He's a top, like I said, he might be the best quarterback in the NFL. I'm just saying for fantasy purposes, he's unproven. So you just don't know.
I actually completely agree on all of those points. 1,000%. I mean, the Saints could have had him. They were this close to picking him up. The only reason why they didn't is the Bills traded their pick away to the Chiefs. And the Saints were looking, they'd already told Drew Brees, look, we're right here at 12. We're going to be picking a quarterback, just to let you know. We're going to be picking up Patrick Mahomes. And Mahomes fell to the Chiefs. And they ended up, I can't remember who they ended up with. Might have been, I don't know. I can't remember who it was. But, yeah, I mean, but he's a great quarterback. But you got to have the weapons, for fantasy. So,
and one quarterback that last year people were really high on him. I don't think people are as high this year, but I think Lamar Jackson's a bit overrated, fantasy and real NFL wise.
Well,
he's
up and down. He's very up and down.
He's not as consistent as everybody else we just mentioned.
Right.
He'll have a game because Josh Allen will get you 40 points and then come back with just a solid game of like 20 something. But Lamar Jackson can get you 40 points and come back and get you nothing. He's a very inconsistent player. If you want to talk about question marks at wide receiver, look no further than the fucking Ravens. They got nobody. They traded away their best receiver in the offseason, Hollywood Brown. He's gone.
Yeah, right.
So I'm steering clear of pretty much the whole fucking Ravens offense this year because their running backs have fucked me the last couple of years, honestly.
Yeah. We'll talk about the Ravens in a little bit, though. But the thing is, what I would say is, as far as like a dark horse in the quarterback position, someone to kind of keep your eye on. We talked about Tyreek Hill. He's over there in Miami. Tua Tagovailoa. We'll see. He could be potentially one of those guys you can watch out for. He obviously hasn't really proved himself. Since he's started in the league, of course he came in basically injured, and kind of had to climb that wall, but he didn't have the weapons either. So I'll be interested to see what happens, with Tua. Do you have anybody in mind that could be?
Well, I have two actually. One, I got to go with my hometown boy Matt Ryan.
Oh my God!
Hey man. He's still good. We're decent. He has
Matty
everything
Ice.
you can want. But to not be so much of a homer, I'm going to go with Derek Carr. I think Derek Carr is he's been a solid QB his whole career.
He's got some weapons now.
Not amazing stats, but decent. And now he's got Devante Adams. Darren Waller's a fucking baller tight end. I don't think they're going to have Ruggs this year. I think, bless his heart, he might be out of the league. I just think that I think Derek Carr is going to ball with Devante Adams.
Yeah. And one person I would say to avoid, speaking of Devante Adams, Aaron Rodgers. he's getting up there in age.
Yeah.
He has no weapons. And this is probably talking about being a little bit biased. I can't stand Aaron Rodgers. I think he's I think he's just a piece of shit, to be honest with you. Again, that kind of talks about like I just don't think he's a good teammate, and that plays a little bit of a role in it. But I think he's just too cocky. He just gets on my nerves a little bit.
I'm with you on. I mean, I like Aaron Rodgers, and again, it's one of those things. Like the Packers might be good this year because they have Aaron Rodgers, and Aaron Rodgers can win you without up stats. So when we rate someone in fantasy, we're not even necessarily knocking their ability to win games in the NFL. We're talking about strictly from a fantasy aspect. So I agree with you. We don't know anything about Aaron Rodgers, how he's going to be this year. Especially, there's been rumblings of him like insulting his receivers and like calling them out publicly and them getting angry. So he's already creating rifts with his new receivers.
It's crazy. Like, just shut your mouth.
Right?
Jeez. Speaking of Devante Adams, let's go ahead and head over to our top 5 receivers. This one's going to be a little bit different. We have some different receivers we can kind of talk about, but we both have the same number 1. We just talked about this man, Devante Adams. First year with the Las Vegas Raiders. So he's my number 1 out of my top 3 wide receivers. I should have gone from 3 to 1, but oh well.
That's fine. We'll go 1 to 3.
Talk about him.
Because it's difference between because we had a lot of top receivers switch teams in the offseason. We had Adams to the Raiders, Tyreek Hill to the Dolphins, and one more. There was one more big name receiver to fucking switch. AJ Brown to the fucking.
Oh yeah. Actually, I forgot
Eagles.
about that. Yeah.
And so the reason Tyreek Hill's not on my list. He's still a top wide receiver, but you don't know. We don't know Tua. Like you said, he's a dark horse for you. We don't know. But Devante Adams, he's not catching them from Rodgers, but I think Derek Carr is a very good quarterback.
Absolutely,
so I don't think Devante Adams is going to lose anything. I think the separation of Adams and Rodgers is going to hurt Rodgers' stats more than Devante Adams, personally.
Yeah, 100%. Because here's another thing: is we got Darren Waller out there as another threat that they have to keep their eye on. But so last year I also had Devante Adams on my team.
Me too.
So I had Burrow and Adams just killing it.
I know I had Allen and Adams. It was fucking killing me. It was great.
Yeah. So I mean, he was another big piece of my team. That were a lot of these guys that I have or that I have on my list were people that I had last year on my team. So it's kind of a running theme a little bit, but I mean, Devante Adams I think he's just a stud, and like you mentioned, Derek Carr is going to be good. My number 2, Deebo Samuel, San Francisco 49ers. I think this is going to be his year. I think he's had a really good year, but I think this is going to be his real breakout year where he goes to the upper echelon of receivers. I think another potential dark horse is Trey Lance, too, the quarterback for the 49ers. So I think the 49ers are set to have a really good year. And I think Deebo is going to be a big part of that. So if you're looking for a receiver. And
Shanahan just always has sneaky good offenses.
Yeah,
and honestly, with the San Francisco at this point, it's all about injuries. They've hit the injury bug pretty tough the last couple seasons.
Correct. Yep.
So I agree. It could be good. So my number 2 though is I'm going to go with a proven receiver who I think is just going to get better, and that's Stephon Diggs with Buffalo for Josh Allen. I mean, he looks like a fucking sophomore in high school there. I promise you, he delivers. I mean. That's the big thing is when you're looking for receivers, you just want to make sure they have a good quarterback because it doesn't fucking matter how good they are if the person throwing them the ball sucks.
Yeah. Absolutely. That definitely matters. Yeah, you're right. It looks like he's about to go to math class here. Geometry is coming up right around the corner. My number 3, I do not have Diggs, but my number 3 is Super Bowl winning team, the Los Angeles Rams, Cooper Kupp. He's one of those that's, obviously a couple years ago he had a devastating injury, destroyed his knee, but he bounced right back up. And then, I mean, he's got a great quarterback, good solid quarterback at Stafford. Stafford's obviously a little bit, older, but he's Stafford could still get him the ball clearly. I mean, they won the Super Bowl last year. And so I think Cooper's still he's in that upper echelon of receivers as well. What's your number 3?
My number 3 is Jamar Chase, Burrow's boy, man. I mean,
yeah,
he just destroyed it last season as a rookie. You have no reason to think that, because even if he doesn't have as good a season as he did last year, I mean, it's still going to be decent because his season last year was just so. No one's going to take that much of a step back from their rookie year. I just don't think it. I think he solidified himself as a top 3 receiver. People just maybe aren't giving him that credit yet because he was a rookie. But I think you're going to see it again this year. And then after this season, I think he's probably going to be probably number 1 on most people's lists after this year, if I had to guess.
Yeah, well, I mean, the one thing I would have to say is, you got to get another great receiver, T. Higgins, on the other side. And so a lot of times, you're going to, especially with Jamar, I would say obviously Jamar is probably the better of the two. But what tends to happen is you're gonna double up Jamar, and that's gonna leave T. Higgins out there on an island that Burrow could get the ball to.
But I disagree because I think T. Higgins is fucking great. He's probably the best number 2 in the league, and I think it's not I think it's offenses can't just game plan to stop Jamar and let T. Higgins go off because then they're going to get burnt. So they got a game plan for both of them. It's not like some team like when you're game planning for, for instance, Devante Adams, like it's him, right. And then you got Darren Waller or whatever. But
right.
With the Bengals, you got to get, and like I said, Mixon's good. He was a good running back last year, so they got the whole package. So you can't just square off on fucking Jamar Chase and hope to stop the Bengals. You're gonna have to stop the whole team. So I think it's gonna open things up for him, if anything.
Yep. So those are our receivers. Do you have any dark horses you want to talk about right now?
No, I'm Homer man, but I think that Pittman for the Colts, he's our bona fide number 1 receiver for sure. He puts up probably number 2 receiver stats up until, but this is the best quarterback he's had, best offense he's played in. And I think the Colts offense is about to go off this year, so I would put Pittman up there as a dark horse.
I have a guy here that a lot of people probably aren't really talking about. Out of Denver, Jerry Jeudy. Now that he's got a quarterback in Russell Wilson, and they could connect on some good big plays, I think he would be a good pickup, good late round. I would say good 5 to 6 round. If you're doing a snake draft, 5th or 6th round pickup there is Jerry Jeudy.
And that's it's the same as in Cincy. You got Cortland Sutton and
right
Jeudy. So yeah, I would I'm huge on Russell Wilson. So any one of his targets.
The AFC West is stacked. Okay,
dude, the AFC in general, man. Good luck. Good luck.
Yeah. Anyways.
But it's crazy. We'll talk about it more next week. But it's not that far-fetched to say the Chiefs missed the playoffs, but not because they're bad, but that division. They're going to beat the fuck up on each other, man.
I know. Yeah. Yeah, I got my buddy Robbie. He's a big Raiders fan. We were talking about that. And so I was like, good luck this year, pal.
It's funny because the Raiders, you've probably put together your best team in 20 years, and you might be the worst team in your division.
It's insane. Let's go to the ball carriers, running backs. We'll go ahead and start with your number 3. Who's your number 3?
Who did I put? I think
it's Dalvin?
Dalvin Cook. Yeah. I think Kirk Cousins, he's a good fantasy quarterback. Sometimes inconsistent, but the Vikings players usually put up pretty decent fantasies, whether it be Justin Jefferson on wide receiver or Dalvin Cook. I even had Kyle Rudolph as tight end one year. Wasn't terrible, wasn't great, but tight end's a tough position these days. There's not that many good ones. But I think Dalvin Cook.
I have to disagree with that. There's a ton of good tight ends, but we'll talk about that.
But not like Gronk and Kelt. There's like two. There's always like one or two game changing tight ends. Then there's like inconsistent ones. But anyway, I think the Vikings offense is going to be consistent. I'm not saying it's going to be like explosive, but I think it's going to be consistent. And I think Dalvin Cook will put up a lot of goal line TDs. So I'd still put him in my top 3.
Now, Justin Jefferson's out there. He's a great receiver. Do you think that'll affect Cook at all?
Well, I think Cook's more of a power, like he's a goal line TD guy more than I don't think Cook's the kind of like, I don't think he's like a Jonathan Taylor giving you 150 yards a game type player, but I think I think the Vikings offense is going to score enough TDs that Cook is going to get a lot of opportunities, and he's good. I mean, he's proven it. He's just got to stay healthy.
My thing though with Cook is you got Jefferson. Jefferson he's just like Chase in that, obviously he was in the same offense in college where he could make the big play, and you're not going to get down into the red zone as much with the Vikings. Potentially, that's my only hang up with Cook right now.
But there's honestly it's a different NFL, man. It's not like 10 years ago. Like there's not as many top running backs. A lot of it's by committee. So a lot of times when you're picking top running backs, you got to go like, who's their backup? Is it by committee type shit, And that fucks you a lot when you're drafting. It happened with me with Arizona last year. I drafted Chase Edmonds and James Conner. And at the first, till Chase Edmonds went down, they were pretty much splitting. And like they were each getting like 10 points a game. And I kept both of them. Luckily for me, not lucky for Chase Edmonds, he got injured. And that paved the way for James Conner to be the number one guy, which is why I ended up winning my league because he became the number one guy. But if Chase Edmonds doesn't go down, I might not win my fantasy league because he's splitting carries the whole time with Chase Edmonds. And the Vikings right now, it seems like it's the Dalvin Cook show.
And for running backs right now, for teams at the running position, you almost need, unless you don't have a big, huge running back that doesn't get injured, basically a freight train, you need 2 running backs. Like the Saints, we saw it last year, they didn't have Kamara. Now they're they got Ingram back, and that 1-2 punch is necessary in your running game nowadays, mainly because your defensive linemen are so fast now, and of course your linebackers. It's not like 300-pound fat asses,
Yeah, every position in the NFL runs 440.
Yeah,
4.40 now. So it's like, what do you do?
Right. So that's your number 3. My number 3, Najee Harris out of Pittsburgh. I'm expecting some big things out of him, and especially considering that their receiving game is not going to be not that great in Pittsburgh. So I'm expecting Najee. He had a good year last year. I think he's going to get into that top 3 running back position.
Yeah, but you got a rookie QB driving that car, so we'll see. I mean, I've so far in the first couple preseasons, Pickett seems to be legit from what I've been reading. So maybe, but I don't know. I'd steer clear of the Steelers' offense this year.
But it's not hard to just turn around and give somebody a ball.
It's true, but I'm saying if they could tee off on the running back because the rookie QB can't make plays.
Yeah.
Because, the NFL's littered with players who tore it up in the preseason and then become an afterthought in the regular season. Happens. Because you got to think, right now, Pickett is, balling against third stringers. Granted, he's also playing with his third stringers, but that's why you don't know. You don't know about these.
Right.
And that's why Steelers is one of those teams I'm just steering clear of for right now.
Yeah. Let's see. Your number 2, Derrick Henry. Actually, we have the same number 2.
Again, and this is all, if it's Henry healthy, he's still young. There's no reason to believe he still won't fucking drive the fuck over people. And because you talked about like avoiding teams that running backs that have a good wide receiver. You were talking about Justin Jefferson on the Vikings. But that's with the Titans. The one thing that would deter me from getting Derrick Henry is the fact that they got rid of A.J. Brown.
Good. That's a good point.
In the offseason, because now Tannehill's a serviceable middle-tier quarterback. I don't know. Malik Willis might end up starting by season's end. It depends if they start off good and Tannehill's winning, he'll stay the starter. But as soon as the Titans go on any sort of slide, wouldn't be shocked to see the rookie get in there. But either way, losing A.J. Brown, man, I think that's one of those things that could hurt Derrick Henry.
Yeah,
you get to tee off on him.
right.
But he's good. I mean,
you're right.
He's still the same player. He's still tough as fuck and fast and strong. So we'll see.
Right. Yeah, I mean, that's something when I kind of forgot about when I was making this list. Was the fact that you don't have Derrick Henry in there,
AJ
and then
Brown.
excuse me, AJ Brown, anymore. And then my number, so that's actually my number 2 as well too, and we also have the same number 1,
My boy,
Jonathan Taylor. I mean, he's the number 1 pick, no matter on overall on when you go to like mock drafts, his name consistently shows up number 1. Probably is the most valuable because, like you mentioned, running backs are very few and far between right now. So he could go, very high in a draft. I mean, like I said, 1 or 2 in a snake draft, and then super high in an auction draft. It costs a lot of money. So,
I mean, he was the top running back with very shaky quarterback play last year, where they pretty much just had to focus on Taylor, and he still killed it. So now that we have Matt Ryan, because I've been reading articles like you might see Taylor's touches go down. It's like, yeah, maybe, but I think you're going to see the touches he gets be even more productive because the defense can't just fucking focus on him.
Well, here's the thing with Taylor though is, and this is where PPR plays in the role. Now you got a quarterback that could get him the ball out in the flats or, open them, in the middle and stuff like that. So
Wentz wouldn't check down at all.
Right.
Wentz was like, it's the long ball or nothing.
Right. Right. So I think if anything, his stock will rise up. So Jonathan Taylor. I mean, yeah. If you're in a snake draft, you got the number 1 pick. I'd scoop him up first. So that's my opinion on that. But all right, let's get ahead over to.
We got a couple dark horses here, real quick.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, thank you.
Oh yeah. So Nick Chubb would have been on the list, but I just don't trust the Browns at all without Deshaun Watson. They lost Baker. They got nothing at quarterback. So the Browns are one of those teams, like all their weapons would have been great fantasy options till you hear Deshaun Watson's out the first 11 games of the season. And then instantly, like Nick Chubb, like he's good, but that's literally all they have to do is get Nick Chubb. And he splits carries with Kareem Hunt. So those 2 factors focus into that. And then a big one, he's been on my top 3. I like him a lot. Austin Eckler, especially in PPR leagues, because he's a glorified slot receiver sometimes. He just catches. So those would be the 2 guys you could look at. Again, Nick Chubb's a wild card because you don't know how the Browns are going to be, but he's an amazing running back. And then Eckler, I mean, I don't know why he's not in my top 3. He could be. You just had to exclude someone.
Right. Yeah. Eckler. Honestly, now I'm thinking about it. Like, if I could go back right now, I'd probably. This kind of might be a little bit controversial, but that's just how I think with A.J. Brown being not gone. I think I would probably take Henry out and put Eckler in, to be honest with you. It'd be close.
Yeah, there's a lot of what ifs with him.
Yeah.
With him and Cook. I think Taylor's a solid number 1, but there's a lot of what ifs with Cook and Henry. But if the what ifs trend in the positive direction, I do think they're both top 3. So we'll see.
My dark horse, he's like, this is a little bit way out there because we really haven't seen him play, at least in the pros. Travis Etienne, he's coming back from injury. I think, obviously, there's a lot of what ifs with the Jaguars. Tony Khan over there, your favorite NFL franchise owner, Tony Khan. We'll bring it back to the wrestling. he's too busy with AEW.
Right? Can't focus on the fucking NFL.
Yeah. He's gonna have CM Punk out there running, be a defensive end.
Yeah. I don't
but
know, man. I'm just not sure about and I thought Trevor Lawrence was a fucking Peyton Manning, Andrew Luck type fucking prospect, like can't miss. But because even like Herbert and like Burrow, their rookie years, like maybe they didn't blow. Well, Justin Herbert did, but like Burrow's rookie year, granted he got injured midway through.
right.
It wasn't. You could see it from him though, even though it wasn't translating into like amazing play on the field. Like you could see something from Burrow, like he's going to be good.
That's what happened with Peyton Manning his rookie year. I mean, it wasn't like he wasn't killing it, you know.
Like, and I watched Jacksonville twice a year, you know, and
right,
not impressed at all by Trevor Lawrence. Granted, it was the worst situation he could have came into. Urban Meyer is a fucking idiot, not good, bad situation. But man, Trevor Lawrence looked pretty bad out there last year, so we'll see.
Yeah, my dog is really agreeing with you too. And Enzo's he's furious. He's a big Jaguars fan.
Yeah.
No, but I don't know. I'm interested to see. You know, and honestly, I'm a little biased. Travis is actually from really close to my hometown, so that's partially why I wanted to throw him out there. But I think, man, he's so good. You know, he's got that potential. You know, so I don't know. Let's head over to the tight ends. Our tight ends are kind of all over the board for the most part. Let's head with your number 3. We have the same number 3, I believe. No, we don't. I'm sorry. Your number 3 is Dallas Goedert, whatever.
Goddard. I don't know names.
Yeah.
I know he looks like Andrew Luck, and he's like a high Andrew Luck.
Yeah.
I like Sirianni's, running the Eagles now, the Colts old offensive coordinator.
Right.
So I think, and Jalen Hurts, from all reports I've heard, Jalen Hurts has taken a next step, been playing well in the preseason. Goddard was a solid tight end, and I think he's going to be the top target in a pretty decent offense. So that's why I'm going with him.
Well, I mean, it's very possible. I've had him on my past teams. He's just never really impressed me that much. We'll see. I mean, but there is things that are changing. You got a lot of more targets that'll leave him open on the field, and a better QB helps too. You know, improved QB.
And I don't think there's many tight end. There's not many game-changing tight ends. There's like 1 or 2 at any given time in the league, and then the rest is inconsistent, serviceable tight ends. Personally, that's my experience.
I think there's a lot of good tight ends potentially, but we'll agree to disagree on that. My number 3, which is your number 2, George Kittle. This guy, man,
Daniel Bryan.
Daniel Bryan and Jace over here. This guy here, I mean, and he is a big wrestling fan too. He's a stud. But again, like you mentioned, 49ers, they got to get rid of the injury bug. So, but he's a good potential. I mean, he could really put you up some points if he's there. So, especially with, like I said, Debo's out there. Again, kind of open up the playing field. I like some tight ends that have a good receiver to balance it out. Although my number 2 is not going to have any receivers, but he killed it for me last year. We'll talk about him. My
number 2 is Kittle, I believe, right?
Yeah. Number 2 is Kittle. Yeah. So I'll let you talk about him.
I just said Shanahan's offenses are pretty solid. They've been doing fine with Garoppolo when Trey Lance comes in. I assume I've heard Trey Lance is getting the start and Garoppolo's out. Yeah. So it's another one of those question marks. Like, is Trey Lance gonna be good? And if he's good, then Kittle is gonna be Kittle's gonna be good regardless. But his fantasy stats are dependent on if Trey Lance is the real deal.
Right.
So I'm kind of basing this top 3 tight end on Kittle, the player that we've seen, with the question marks that are coming with what Trey Lance is a second-year quarterback now.
Yeah.
So we'll see. But I agree, he's a beast if he's getting solid quarterback play.
My number 2 is Mark Andrews. Now, this kind of goes against what I said, but I think Andrews is so damn good that he could get open. Especially with Lamar Jackson, he can open up the playing field a little bit to get him open. If he had more of a pocket passer with the Ravens receivers, then I'd be like, as long as Jackson can open up the defense a little bit, I think he could get open. And last year he was on my team and he killed it. Now again, he had Hollywood Brown on the team last year, but I still like him as top tight end to pick up here. So
I like him a lot. I just, in general, the Ravens, I'm just not sure about, because it's crazy how far you drop. 2 years ago, I remember Colin Cowherd picked the Ravens to go undefeated.
Well, that's Colin Cowherd. He's a fucking idiot. So.
But I'm just saying they were good. I'm not saying they were that good, but they were in the territory where you're picking them to definitely win the division and maybe the favorite for the Super Bowl. To me, the Ravens, they might not even make the playoffs in the AFC, man, compared to what else is there.
No, they're not. They're not making the playoffs this year.
And
1,000%.
I think Lamar. I think we've seen peak Lamar Jackson. I could be wrong. He could make a fool of me and prove me wrong next season. But I remember watching Lamar Jackson play 2 seasons ago and being blown away, and then watching him play last year and feeling. I think
he's plateaued right now.
He plateaued. Like, I think we've seen the best of him, but I could be wrong.
Yeah. Again, like I said, he's just such a big guy, fast. I think he can get open. So it'll be interesting to see. You're number 1.
And I think he's the only game-changing tight end in the league right now. And I think he's 33 now.
Yeah.
So we'll see. He might have got old, and maybe having Tyreek on the field helped. I mean, it definitely helped. So we'll see how he does being the top guy in a year older. But he has Mahomes. It's still Travis Kelce. He's going to be the main weapon in that offense. So, I just think until Kelce actually has that season where you see the decline, I think he's worthy of the number 1 spot.
Yeah. It's hard for me to put him definitely in the number 1. I mean, I don't have him. I'll talk about my number 1 here in a little bit, but it's hard for me to really put him in the top 3. I mean, he's definitely good. I mean, look, if he's there, mid draft, I'm going to pick him up for sure. But the Chiefs were dealt a big blow. But much like I talked about with Andrews, Mahomes can also open up the defense a lot too. And Kelce could be there. He can get open. He's big and physical. So it's the potential. As far as with Andrews is a younger guy. So it is about age here. And we'll see what happens. My number 1, Darren Waller. I think with the addition of Devante Adams, much like with Derek Carr, I mean, Waller was balling, without any receivers out there. And now that you got Devante Adams, I mean, he runs up the middle. I mean, he's going to roll over everybody. And I remember seeing him like during their Hard Knocks season, whenever the HBO was following him around. I was like, dude, this dude is a beast. And of course, they followed him around. He was coming back. He did some jail time or whatever. I think we have one of those clips right here.
Stay off the damn weed.
He stayed off the damn weed. I don't remember what it was, but weed should be legal in the NFL anyway. I think he's going to be killing it this year. That's just my prediction. Oh boy, perfect timing.
Yeah. You brought it up as I'm hitting. I'm like, I got a little time here. Guess not. No, stay off the damn weed. I like Waller a lot. I love the Raiders offense. I would recommend definitely Carr, Adams, and Waller. But I just think Waller will with having Adams, Waller's production will fall. It's weird because it's like the same case you make for a reason you wouldn't pick a tight end on one team. You make the exact opposite case for why you would on. It's crazy, but it makes sense in my head. It's not hypocrisy. It's just like some teams it makes sense, some teams it doesn't. So, you just got to make those decisions for yourself.
Absolutely. Yep. Any final words on any of the picks and top players and things like that?
Just really take to heart what I say because I'm really good at fantasy and my sports intellect is fucking off the charts.
All right, I'm gonna go ahead and hit the outro music here. And make sure you find everything Turnbuckle Tavern related. Head over to turnbuckletavern.com where you can find everything we got going on.
Oh, is this the show? Are we ending the show right now?
We're done. We're done.
Oh, okay. All right, man.
Unless you want to talk about something else.
No, like I said, with kickers and defense, just no one gives a fuck.
Nobody gives a fuck.
Look for defenses playing a weak offense, and look for if you can't get Justin Tucker, kickers are all the same.
Yeah. Don't pick a kicker round 5 like a buddy of mine did one year. Just don't do that. he didn't go very far. No, but head over to, of course, the Turnbuckle Tavern for everything Turnbuckle Tavern related. We need to get some merch too. We'll have to talk to Chad about that. Get a LongBalls t-shirt, but not in black.
Not in black. You gotta be able to wear it.
Yeah. So make sure you head over to theturnbuckletavern.com. We'll be here every Tuesday. And let me turn that damn music off. It's kind of annoying the crap out of me. And we're each every week. We got my dog Enzo. He's steadily barking, son of a bitch. But we'll talk about everything going on in NFL. Of course, stay tuned to the flagship. You have the flagship with the Call the Hawk segment each and every week, and also Broken VCR is also on Tuesday mornings, Sundays on Twitch. The Raw Down, which is each going to be moving to Thursdays once the season starts. And I think that'll be.
And apologies in advance. We're working on the format of the Raw Down. We're going to make it better. We're probably going to cut it down in length, maybe switch out some of the hosts here and there. We're just going to tweak it and make it.
I've been asking the Hawk to get on, but he's too scared.
I will. I'll watch a Raw one week.
There you go.
Get on there.
And of course, stay tuned to the Pod Foundation. The Pod Foundation is where you can find everything for between Chick Foley Show, Extra Cooler, Turnbuckle Tavern, and Coming Down the Aisle. Coming Down the Aisle, of course, we will have a new episode this coming week as well. Any final words, Hawkster?
I'm just so fucking ready for the NFL, man. I can taste it. I just exist like February through August, and then September comes and the year starts. It's football, it's Halloween, it's fucking great.
Oh, yeah, baby. So make sure you subscribe each and every week. Hit that notification button and let us know when we're going live. For the Hawkster and myself, we'll see you next week for the NFL preview.